Hello, Know the Bird here. In this video, I'm going to talk about 5 methods I used for cleaning some antique keys, so you can see the results of the different methods and the effects of them. I was cleaning keys, but I expect the methods would apply to other steel antiques as well, so not just keys if you're interested in using it with locks or other antiques. So this first key on the far left is just the baseline key. That gives you an idea of what they all looked like when I got them. Basically, I bought all these keys at the same time as part of a set, and they all had about the same amount of rust on them and looked about like this. This is one of the original keys with no cleaning, no polishing, nothing on it, nothing done to it. You can see it's fairly rusty, but nothing too crazy. There's a few nicks where you can still see through the rust there, but that's about it. The first method was probably the gentlest. It was just a 1 hour soak in an ultrasonic cleaner at 60 degrees Celsius, and then after drying it, a wax polish. You can still see there's a good amount of rust on it if we look at it. And this sort of dark color comes from the wax polish. It darkens it up a good bit. But if you look around, we can still see rust all around it. And we can also see some spots where it looks like it's also managed to go through the patina a little bit. So we can see some white marks there, but not too many. Overall, pretty gentle. Just a few corners there. That might have actually been a nick. That's pretty strong right there. So yeah, you can see that. The next one we'll look at real quick. This is using a Scotch-Brite pad, a Scotch-Brite plastic scrub pad. I think it's the heavy-duty one with Johnson & Johnson's baby soap, the No Tears baby soap. And then afterwards drying it off and using a wax polish. So this, I think, has similar amounts of rust as we saw before. One of the things that is nice about this method is I could see, like as I was starting to go through the patina here, and as I was starting to go through the patina here, I could just stop, and you could quickly see where you're at and just stop what you're doing if you don't want to keep going. You can see here there was still rust on the top when I was starting to go through the patina. So it's sort of your choice. Do you want to get more rust off and do a little more damage to that black layer, or do you want to stop where you're at? But I would say that's the big advantage to the Scotch-Brite pad and just some mild soap, is that you can see where you're at as you're going and decide how far you want to go with it. And it's not too intense. Like, it's easy to just take it slow while you're working on it. And then I also used the wax polish on the end with all of these after I was done. This next one is using steel wool, fine grade steel wool, that 0000, and also using that with petroleum jelly. So you cover the whole thing in petroleum jelly or Vaseline, and then scrub it with the steel wool. And it does, I was expecting it to do a lot more damage to the patina, but it actually doesn't do that much. I think the petroleum jelly kind of acts almost like a buffing compound and gives it sort of a polishing effect. But the disadvantage, I think, to this method is it can take off more of the patina than you realize, because while you're doing it, it sort of has this gray pasty color all over from the steel wool and the jelly. So it's hard to see how much of the patina is coming off. Like, I didn't realize that there was patina coming off here and here around the edges as I was trying to clean in between. And then I didn't realize that there was so much patina coming off here on the bow. Obviously not a lot of damage there. It doesn't look like any super terrible scuff marks, I don't think. But I guess the word of caution there is because it's all gray and pasty, it's a little harder to tell where you're at. I do think the advantage is, though, I think this took off the rust better than the ultrasonic cleaner or the soap and water with the scrub pad. I think this did the best job of getting the rust off while still maintaining that sort of most of that, black patina. All right, so this next one's a lot more intense. This is soaking it overnight and white vinegar of 5% acidity. And then afterwards, cleaning it up with a brass brush. And what I was doing with the brass brush was I was basically cleaning it and scrubbing it as long as I saw orange. And that acid tends to break down, I guess, that sort of black layer. And once you're scrubbing it, it all just becomes real orange color. So this is basically scrubbing it until that orange stops coming off. And this is what's left. It gives it a really rough feel. Like you can feel the pores from where the rust was filling up these pores and where it ate away at the metal over the years. So it has the roughest feel. Once you coat it with the wax polish, it's not as rough, but it's still a little bit rough to the feel. I've used like commercial grade cleaners, rust removers in the past, and they have produced a similar effect of this sort of gray color and that sort of rough feel. If you want to sort of reverse it and try to make it darker again, you can use like scuff mark pens that are used for like rifles and things like that. And there's probably ways to chemically treat it too, but that's getting a little intense, and I don't know enough about that to comment on that. Except that I'm sure there's treatments for like gun barrels and things you could do to try to reverse this. But generally, it's going to be, I think, a fairly difficult task to do. Yeah, once you get to this point. And then going even further than that, we've got this. This is using a brass brush, but on a grinding wheel, so it goes real quick hitting it up. And then afterwards, using a Dremel with 240 grit sandpaper. And that 240 grit sandpaper is what gives it this real shiny look. I'm sure that if you wanted to take it even further, you'd go to like 300 grit and then maybe like some green buffing compound. And you could probably give yourself like a mirror finish on the key if you wanted. But this is starting to give you that real shiny look where you can start to make it look almost like new if you wanted to try hard enough. This does have the wax polishing compound on the end of it. But yeah, super shiny look. Very different than the others for sure. But also you often see a lot of keys like this online that have been cleaned up this much. All right, so that's the 5 different methods I used. Yeah, I mean, different effects for sure. I think there's a lot of personal preference. I know that some people like prefer their keys to look like this and like it's just been dug out of the ground, and you can really see the sort of use it's been through and the life it's been through. And there's other people that would prefer to see it like, all cleaned up and looking almost like it's brand new. And would love to see it like, oh, and people will say different things. Some people will say, well, this is preserving it because you've cleaned it all up. And other people would say, well, no, this is preserving it because you really have done the least damage to the patina and the, yeah. And I think generally speaking for collectors, they like to see something more like this. And that generally speaking, this kind of key supposedly loses value. I don't know how true that is though. If you look online, you'll see a lot of keys that look like this selling for a lot more than these. So I don't know that it's always true as far as value goes. And then I guess one of the other things too is that, a lot of people would not say that like, there are people, and this is also personal preference. Some people say rust is not a patina. It's rust, it's damage. Whereas other people say like, no, that is a part of the patina and that's what forms the look. So there's certainly a lot of personal preference as to which method you want to use. And that's why I tried to sort of give you a variety and of examples that you could look at and sort of see like, oh, well, I kind of like this. Truth be told, I like a lot of these. I kind of like this for some keys, and there's other keys where I would prefer it to look more like this, look more antique-ish. So I could go both ways with different keys in my sets. But yeah, after this, I'll just attach some of the videos so you can see the process if you're curious. And thanks for watching. Hope you all are having an okay new year, that things are going okay, and hope you all take care. All right, see ya. So that's out of the ultrasonic cleaner. Still see a good bit of rust on it, but let's wipe it off and see what it looks like. Just drying it off. Still see a good amount of rust in there. Okay, I'll put some wax on it. And we'll wipe that up some. Okay, and then we'll add that over. So yeah, still can see some rust there for sure. But it does look darker and less orange with the wash and the wax. Okay, for this first key, we have Scotch-Brite scrubbing power scrub sponges, heavy duty. And we have some Johnson's Baby Shampoo, No More Tears. I'm going to put a few squirts of that in there. And I'm just going to stir it up. And I'm going to use the pads. Basically, my intent as far as the scrubbing goes is going to be to take off rust, but not take off the sort of black. I think it is technically rust, but the black patina, I'm just going to try to stick to just to the orange color. And just try and take off the orange color. I'll probably edit and zoom this video up as needed. All right, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stop there, and I'm going to dry it off and put a little bit of wax on it, and let's see what it looks like. Just drying it all off. put some of this on it just to keep it from rusting right back up. I think I'm probably putting way too much on there, but it's okay. P for plenty. This really reminds me of the Cosmoline they used to pack like Eastern European rifles in, like Cold War rifles. First rifle I got was a Mauser rifle that had been packed in Cosmoline when I was like 18, and I went to go shoot it, and it wouldn't even fire. And I thought it might have been it was a super, I can't remember the year it was made, but it was an old one. And I thought it might have been so old that it wouldn't fire anymore, but that wasn't the case. It actually fired great. It just was so filled with Cosmoline, the firing pin wouldn't go all the way forward to hit the primer. So I spent a while cleaning it, and after I was done cleaning it, it fired great. It was a good little rifle. Yeah. I ran into some money issues in college and ended up using it to help pay some rent. But it was a good little rifle. But anyways, the Cosmoline kept that stuff. It sort of made it last forever. Even though it was just sitting around somewhere in a crate for really 60 years. The Cosmoline helped it last a long time. All right, so there's key number 1. Yeah, and so we can still see some rust there. I don't know, I'll look at them all closer later, but you can still see some rust, but it's definitely not as bad. And we did not, there's a few spots we went through the black patina there. And on here, I think if I get the angle right, you can see like right there, we went through I went through the patina some. So it's certainly, you got to be gentle if you're trying not to damage that patina at all. It's pretty easy to go through pretty quick. And you still won't be able to get necessarily all the rust off, because like trying to take that spot off left his mark there. But I don't know, I'll look at them all closer later, but I do think this is nice in that it keeps that black patina real good. I'm just comparing before and after. Not too shabby. All right, let's go on to some other methods. Okay, this next method we're going to try is something I saw online of using petroleum jelly and some fine steel wool to clean it. So I'm going to give that a shot. We've got some steel wool, fine, and some petroleum jelly. This is good stuff to have in a bug out bag or an emergency kit. It's good. You can put it on little cuts to protect them and things, like little ones, little nicks. You can put it on like socks and stuff like that, or different cloths to help you start a fire. Excuse me. I have no idea how much of this to put on there. I didn't see a video on this or anything, so I'm just sort of throwing it on there. We'll see what happens. I'm not entirely sure what the purpose of the putting the mineral oil on is. I don't really know how that helps it, but I am curious what this is going to look like when we're done, and how much it'll take off. All right, so we got that all pretty much covered. I'm using an old trashy t-shirt, and I'm just going to sit down and get to it and see what happens. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop and give that a rinse and just sort of see what that looks like when I take this off. I may also rinse it with some rubbing alcohol just in case the water doesn't pull that off or not. Time will tell. I'll be right back. Okay, so I just rinsed this off with some water. I did need to use a little soap just to get the Vaseline off my hands and off of it. So I'll just dry it off now. Get a little drier and put a little of that Renaissance wax on it. And then we'll take a look at it. I do got to say, this actually worked better than I was expecting. I was expecting the steel wool to do a lot more damage. Yeah. All right, so just give you a quick view of that. So you can see, yeah, it was taking off more of the patina than I realized. On some of those spots, you can see the silver going through. A few points, but not too crazy. No big scratches or anything. It's still better than I would have expected. So set that one aside for now. Move on to the next method. Okay, so this will be the most intense method we've gone through so far. We're going to use a little white vinegar, 5% acidity. We're just going to soak this key in that overnight, and then tomorrow we'll hit it up with a brass brush. So this will definitely take the most rust and patina off, but it should be a good comparison to see. And throughout the night, I may occasionally just shake this up in there a little bit, but won't do much else. All right, cool. Okay, so this is soaked overnight, and now I'm going to hit it with a brass brush. And this is definitely going to be the most aggressive of all the methods, but it'll be good for contrast. So here you can see, just sitting overnight, there's still rust on it. I think if you let it sit in there longer, more that would come off. And also if you use something like an ultrasonic cleaner and heated it up, that would also speed up the process even more. But I think just between this being on here and then using this brass brush right here, it's going to do a good bit. So go ahead and get started. And you can instantly see it starts to go through both layers of the patina, both the rust and that sort of like dark black color. And rinse it again and dry it off. All right, so let's do that. We're just going to add a big old tablespoon of baking soda and mix that in. Then once we got that all mixed in, we'll just drop the key in there. I don't think the exact measurement's a big deal here. It's just to neutralize that vinegar acid all over the key that we just had. So we're just going to try and mix that in there. About probably a little more than a cup of water, but about a tablespoon to a cup of water is what people suggested online. And we'll just drop this key in there, and we just let that soak in there for about 10 minutes is what people were saying. So we'll do that. Okay, that's been 10 minutes. Go ahead and rinse this off again. dry it off. Okay. Dry it off real quick. Okay. Yeah, you can see that took a whole lot more off. We'll go ahead and put some wax on it and put that in with the others. Let me get an up close view on some of that. Okay. This one definitely has a rough feel from the patina coming off. You know, you can feel the pitting, and it's not a smooth feeling key at this point. I think you might be able to polish that out with other stuff, but just naturally it's a rough feel now. I shouldn't say naturally, but I should say after that cleaning, the feel is a little rough. There's some. All right, I'll set this with the others.